Imagine that you are Syndrome, but somehow you have just been thrown out of your delightfully animated world and through some techno-magical bullshit wormhole have been thrust into something you don't fully understand.
Brilliant.
It's a whole new world. The Incredibles are gone. You didn't get shot into a turbine, and everyone's proportions seems to be more reasonable. But this is now a new place for you to be in control. First things first though, is that you need to take an inventory of the things that you have. Resources, you know, the stuff that you came with, which just happen to basically be your super suit, which basically means you have nothing except for your 0-point energy. According to the newspapers, it is the year 2015, whatever that means, and you are in a type of big city. But during your inventory session, you are rudely interrupted by seeing action figures, t-shirts, all manner of merchandises commemorating superheroes. Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and all of this just makes your blood boil. No matter where you go, there are always supers apparently, but that's okay. You have your direction again, and it was plan A all along. But instead of removing supers, you are removing Avengers. Of course, having come with nothing, you have to acquire the basics. Money, food, shelter. You're a smart guy, you can scale from a very small amount. You think about selling your 0-point energy technology, but that would remove the one advantage that you have right now, which is that no one in this world has any idea about who you are, and what you have. They have no idea of your motive. You are completely hidden in plain sight. So you quickly sneak a hat from a nearby store, place it on the ground around the corner. You can do magic to impress some people with your 0-point energy. But when you do it, well, there's actually no enthusiasm. People look at you with a glazed expression. A kid even says, "Mummy, isn't that just a bit lame? Why does his suit have a giant S? Is he pretending to be a hero?" And you're taken aback. Lame? Pretending to be a hero? You have to hide the pain that you feel, shove it deep down. That just small amount of embarrassment to be equated to the supers. This is not the time to cause a ruckus. But luckily, some people actually do take pity on you, and they leave you $10.57. It's not much, but it's a start. So, using your overwhelming intellect, you do what nobody should ever do in times of desperation. You go to the casino and try to find a game. Unfortunately, the bouncers say that you look a bit young. So you take a look in the mirror, and you are aghast. Your features, your beautiful, beautiful features have been warped by this universe. Gone is your glorious giant head. Yes, you still have your wonderful red hair, but you are replaced by something smaller and proportional. On instinct, you casually say to them, "But I'm 30 years old." And as if feeling kind of bad that they did that, they let you through. I guess in this world, old people look stupidly young. But here, you actually have nothing but time. You have to figure out your game, and so you exchange your $10 for a singular chip and get to work. After a while, you notice something. One of the roulette tables is spinning consistently. The dealer has it down to such an art that is barely deviating slightly. This is now your angle. So you sit down, wait for the spin, calculate the velocity, angle the momentum, 32 red, and you put your chip down before they call out to stop. And 32 red, you won.
Money!
$350? It's not much, but it's a start. Now, could you count cards? Yes, very easily, but at the same time, that requires you to sit down with more money than you have, and roulette is just a bit easier. So the next time, you actually put down $350, spread the cluster around, you know, so that way you kind of look a little bit low-key, and you almost net yourself $2,000.
Damn.
And this goes on for several hours. Of course, you have to throw a few times, lose some money, gain money, but you give yourself a modest edge. But then the casino does come knocking and asks you to leave, saying, "Oh, you are not actually a cosplayer, and you are actually likely a hero using their abilities to gain an edge on the casino." Either way, they tell you, "Look, just leave now, take your money, and leave," and you come out with $50,000, enough to cover most of your immediate expenses. So you get a cheap apartment.
Huh? Oh, come on! You gotta admit this is cool!
New clothes, new identity. You technically don't have an identity here, obviously. You were not carrying your ID in your suit. But now you are vaguely all set up, and through some illegal connections you sort out on the street, you get ready for the next stage of your plan. Futures. You're gambling on the system itself. You know, when you're overwhelmingly intelligent, gambling is a terrible way to make short cash. But this is your next few months. There's some losses, there's some gains. But during this time, you do actually build yourself up. The news keeps showing these Avengers, and they somehow literally blow up an entire Eastern European city, and a giant metal man who was apparently built by Tony Stark, who, at this point, you have done a little bit of digging into these people. Half of these idiots are not actually super. Tony Stark is basically just an alcoholic version of you with even more narcissism. And that just, it rubs rubs you up the wrong way because he basically stole your whole bit. So naturally, of course, he is number one on your list. But you also have identified the major threats, Thor and the Hulk, and to an extent Captain America, but let's be realistic, he's just some roided up arsehole, and S.H.I.E.L.D. with their huge helicarriers and almost infinite resources. And also the girl that just came onto the scene with the red magic stuff. Either way, with this Sokovia incident, which totally proves you right by the way, heroes are dangerous, evil, and only out to hurt those around them, forgetting the little guy even exists. All just so they can parade around in their costumes and take all the glory. But putting your insecurities to bed, you immediately understand there'll be an initial dip in the market followed by a flurry of contracts and investments into Eastern Europe. And from your lowly investment portfolio, you balloon it to several million. Not bad, not great, but timing is everything. What you do need is billions, but billions don't come to you from investing, but you have enough here with this amount of money, this amount of capital to almost have everything that you need. And Tony himself actually gave you the framework to his demise. His army of iron suits, which is basically your Omni-droids on a scale you never even dreamed of. His armor showed you the Hulk could be forced into submission. And Thor, well, Thor is still a problem, but he's mostly just a hammer, and his hammer can be contained. So hacking Tony, stealing his suits, is the first play that you want to make, but that's when you see it. It was hidden in the news. Doctor Strange, a man of magic. Now, you actually have no qualms about using magic. After all, sufficiently powerful technology is indistinguishable from magic, so why not just skip the middleman and use magic? And between magic and 0-point energy, you would probably almost be unstoppable. But it gets even better. The Sokovia incident gave you Ultron, which told you about vibranium, and after you did a little bit of digging, you found out it was being held in Africa. Wasn't too hard to see, actually. There's a guy called Black Panther running around causing a ruckus. There's also that guy that had his arm ripped off by Ultron. So you want some vibranium as well. And these three things will be your salvation.
Oh, this is just too good.
But of course, there are more heroes constantly coming out the woodwork, like Spider-Man and Scarlet Witch. So you have to build a database, you know, like what you did in your universe. And concerningly, there is the new girl. She can seemingly manipulate matter or something. There is that other girl that flew off into space a long time ago. But, you know, everyone else is basically just a guy with wings, a guy with a bow and arrow, a super secret spy, and a guy with a metal arm. And to top it all off, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agency was actually infiltrated with their biggest rival, who was an evil agency. Dropped a carrier onto a city. Like, at this point, you have to conclude the fact that all of these heroes are just traumatized soldiers or rich people with gadgets doing evil shit, and they all need to go. But you now have enough money, you can actually do everything. So you start off and you capture a magician. It was tough, he was a little worm, but you worked it out.
Sly dog.
And you force him to teach you magic, which actually didn't work. Apparently you can't force these people to do these things, and you need to go to Asia to meet the Sorcerer Supreme, which actually you do. And she does not like you at all. She's perceptive. She tells you, well, if it isn't a person not of this space, but of another. But your wit is sharper than her mysticism, so you know how to ingratiate and also how to act like a pitiful fool. Oh, wise sorcerer, I am but lost here on this planet. I am searching for any way to get home. Would you please help me? And she's looking at you as if you are the most pathetic creature that's ever existed, which is fair enough. And she says, oh, I can teach you the way to get home if you release my sorcerer. Well, she got you there, but you do stay there and you do learn some basic sorcery. One of the best that they showed you was the sling ring. Now you can teleport anywhere, and you gathered some basic combat abilities. Like, you're no Sorcerer Supreme, you're no Stephen Strange, but you can make this work. You'd like to have learned a little bit more, but one of the young magicians let it slip onto you a little rumor. The Time Stone, that thing that Doctor Strange keeps around his neck, is one of the 6 Infinity Stones. Stones of infinity power, apparently. Which then sets you off on a whole other side quest. But unfortunately, there is literally zero information about any of these stones anywhere on the earth except for, in the magician place, and also the fact that Tony Stark has a yellow stone on one of his robots' heads. Vision. But this is a step in the right direction, a stepping stone, if you will. And while you're off gallivanting in Asia, you actually gather some more intel on a bit of vibranium. It's not a lot, but it's enough that you might have a small, significant edge, and you do manage to acquire it through some insidious means. Try not to draw attention to yourself, but you do a little bit of testing, you find out how to smelt it, and it gives you one super Omni Droid. So you do what any self-respecting super genius does in times like this. You perform the Ultron 2.0. You hack into Tony's suits. Of course, his new Friday AI is basically a triviality. It's prehistoric technology for you. And you also knew exactly how he'd respond considering Ultron, and locked him and the other Avengers in their new complex in the ocean, with his own suits and your gassed up Vibranium android as a babysitter. But there's one thing that bugs you. There was no Hulk and there was no Thor. Neither of them have shown up in a while. The Scarlet Witch was a pain, but once you ripped the stone out of Vision's head, she kinda shut up a little bit after a scream that caused you problem. But anyway, she was dealt with. Now most of the Avengers are now down for the count, and you did eliminate some of the weaker ones, the normal heroes, the guy with the bow and arrow. He's gone. But you are now with one stone, and unfortunately public scrutiny is against you. But you gently remind them of all of the things these so-called heroes have done. They dropped a city, they destroyed New York, and they worked with absolute impunity for no respect for boundaries. They even did their own accords after the Sokovia thing. You're just keeping them to account. You are just righting their wrongs
of their evil deeds.
But just as you're addressing the nation, none other than Doctor Strange appears, ready to throw hands with you. Of course, your magic is nothing compared to his, and you are completely on the back foot. Your Omni Droid is still babysitting the idiots, so all you have is 0-point energy that is for some reason thwarted by his magic. But that's when something comes down from a rainbow in the sky and crashes into Doctor Strange's house of all places, and Banner/Hulk has returned. Well, it looks like you're gonna have to get your hands even more dirty, but this little distraction lets you land your 0-point energy on Doctor Strange and keep him there pinned, and you take the time stone for yourself while you put him in a magically proof bunker. Luckily, you did actually learn how to make a bunker that was safe of magic. But anyway, this guy tells you Thanos is coming. You're just, who is Thanos? Then a giant donut appears. More creatures proclaiming Thanos, whoever that guy is. Banner does not turn into the Hulk, which is actually extremely handy for you, thinking about it. But now you have more pressing issues. You have these so-called children of Thanos ready to try and rip you apart. Of course, the Time Stone is basically a dud to you. The spell is a pain in the ass to use, and, well, Doctor Strange made that harder. But you do still have the 2 stones, and these aliens are eyeing them up like they're candy, and they want to get in the back of your van. I had 2 stones, the smaller one says. Yep, you have 2 stones literally burning a hole in your pocket. You can't really touch them. It is crazy to have such powerful things in your back pocket. But this is where you employ your most genius and devious strategy today. You run with the sling ring. These are beings you have no intel on, here trying to destroy you. Running is quite literally your only option. And this goes on for a while. You're constantly teleporting around, and spaceship after spaceship keeps coming in. A lot of people are dying, almost like half the planet is about to die, until finally another portal opens up, and out steps a giant man with a purple testicle for a chin. And he starts just talking. Oh my god, he's rambling. He's waffling. You are on the receiving end of a monologue. This is your moment, actually. This is your chance. He's so self-indulgent, he won't see it coming. This is actually what got you killed. Your arrogance, you underestimated those other weak supers, something you would never do again. And you open with your 0-point energy. He's completely off guard. Apparently he has never seen something like that, which somehow lets you take his gauntlet with what is presumably the other Infinity Stones from him without a fight. And he just gives you this wide-eyed, fearful look. Problem is, you can't even hold the weight of the gauntlet, let alone wear it. But you try anyway, putting all 6 stones in their slots and awkwardly putting your fist inside. Finally, your greatest ambition can come true. Not just removing all supers from the world, but giving everyone in the universe superpowers. Because if everyone is super, nobody's super. But as you stand before this testicle chin monster, barely coming up to his chest, prepared to give your own monologue, another rainbow bursts from the sky, someone screaming, "Bring me Thanos!" You're just like, Thanos? Who's Thanos? You're Syndrome, man. But out flies an axe. An axe? Who carries an axe? But you were too slow to react, and as it comes down, it cleaves you in the head. Thank you for watching. I know this was a bit of a different one from what I normally do, but, you know, we're going to do some of this kind of stuff and other villain perspectives. Look, I'm not going anywhere, but, you know, there'll be some of this, some of the other style. We just mix and match based on what I want to do, so don't worry, there will still be other things going on. Anyway, I just want to shout out my members real quick, especially good old Granite. Alexander Colburn, and B Wilder Kings. Thank you guys, your support means everything to me. And of course, Lavender, Zyla, Toasted Bread, Boss Link, Suzukaze, Takaru, Techno Scorpion, and Alan. Thank you. Have a great day and have a great life.